This weekend I drove up to Deerfield, Colorado, and I will be sharing some experiences of posts that I found online with people talking about their experiences and eerie vibes that they got from Deerfield, Colorado, which rightfully so, every ghost town I feel like has some eerie vibes to it, whether it's haunted or not. Looking at the history of Deerfield, Colorado, this is an example of the National American Colonization Movement inspired by Booker T. Washington. It was one of the 14 colonies of rural towns established in the West to provide Americans of African descent with the opportunity to own and work their own land. By 1921, the town's net worth was appraised at $1 million. Of course, after the Great Depression, their agriculture was declined. By the 1940s, the town's population had decreased to 12. Haunted or not, this place is worth visiting. Welcome to my layer of creepy, eerie, and weird comments that you guys leave me, part 2. Okay, in 2012, I saw a man with black eyes and mouth wide open staring at me in my window. Did not look human. Can anyone explain? The year was 2000, and everyone was worried about living past the year 2000. And unfortunately, my great-grandmother did not make it past the year 2000. And then a few months after her death, we would receive this phone call from 00000000. Every time we would pick up this phone, it was literally just white, crackling noise. Like a TV channel at night. Now, for those of you that are not aware, in 2000, it was a very different time in that year because people didn't use cell phones like we do now. In fact, a lot of people used landline phones. So obviously, like, receiving these phone calls became incredibly annoying, and finally my mother just got really fed up with it. And so she called the phone company to find out what these phone calls, or where these phone calls were coming. And they discovered that that phone number was coming from a payphone. But it wasn't just any payphone, it was the one right next to where my grandmother had been buried. And not only that, the payphone was disconnected 2 years prior to that, so it was not in use. And so that settles it. My family believed from there on that whenever we would receive this call from 00000000, that it was coming from my grandmother. And so these phone calls would just continue on for the next 2 years after that. And at the time, fast forward, these couple years, we live in an area where we rarely get tornadoes. Well, one time we had a tornado coming through our neighborhood and it caused a lot of damage. This time, however, when we received the phone call from that 00 number, it wasn't white noise, it was my grandmother. My mother swore up and down that our great-grandmother called asking if you were okay instead of hearing that traditional white noise. Again, just reinforcing this idea that my great-grandmother had been calling us for the last 2 years. We're not going to give you a patent for something that you say you put your hands on and it spells out answers. These were the words of the patent office who had told Elijah Bond, who was trying to patent the Ouija board after the Ouija board named itself. So he took his sister-in-law, Helen Peter Norsworthy, who worked the board very well. When he took her there, she was able to prove that it worked, but it really wasn't easy. The patent office believed that if they would allow this, they would become the laughing stock of the town, and it would just become this whole crazy notion. It escalated to the point where the head of the patent office said, "You don't know me, and I don't know you. If this board can spell my name out, then I will patent this." And so the Ouija board spelled out his name. And thus, the Ouija board was patented. Although she's considered the mother of the Ouija board, it's also been said that she didn't have a good relationship with the board either. In fact, she called it the lying board. She spent much of her life telling her family to avoid the board. We're not going to give you... His son told us that the silhouette of a man came running at him a few weeks back. At the time that this happened, I noticed that there was a notification from her home securities app. After opening the camera app, I saw that he looked into the lounge and ran away panicking. Meanwhile, just as he ran, I noticed that there was an orb. The orb came rushing at him, and it followed him. We're trying to determine who this man is. It just shows our son frightened. When I was 10 years old, I was playing in my backyard, and out of nowhere, I heard dogs barking. This all happened behind my house, and as soon as I turned around, I saw 30 to 40 dogs. They were pulling some sort of sled. The weird thing, it was on dry ground. And I took a closer look to see who was riding it, and it looked like a guy, but not quite human. And after about 15 seconds, they disappeared. Now, I know what you're thinking, but you gotta put yourself in my shoes. How are you ever gonna explain that? All right, so when I was in 6th grade, I had a friend that was really into the Bloody Mary stuff. And obviously, when you do Bloody Mary, you go to a mirror and you say the person's name, Bloody Mary, 3 times. However, my friend wanted to do his uncle. And so he did his uncle's name instead of Bloody Mary for whatever reason. And instead of 3 times, he just kept doing it until he felt really uncomfortable. I don't know, it had to have been like 23 times. And then he said that he felt really uncomfortable saying his uncle's name in front of the mirror. He said he felt really weird, like really weird vibes, like the spirit was angry. All right, fast forward. I'm house sitting for them. I had a puppy. And they also wanted to like me to water the plants. So I'm having to go to the bathroom. And when I go to the bathroom, it was really dark and I thought I saw a shadow person in front of the mirror. Alfred Packer was the first man ever convicted of cannibalism in 1874. You see, cannibalism wasn't illegal in Colorado in 1874. In April of 1874, Packer came out of the woods and claimed that the rest of his party abandoned him. Packer insisted that the group decided that he was a burden and left him to die. People were very suspicious because, A, he didn't look malnourished and he had a lot of money to buy booze despite claiming that he was broke. He was questioned by the authorities and he told the authorities that his party died of exposure one by one. The story later changed to the party died one by one, but the one man sacrificed himself as food. This version states that Packer was walking with the remaining party who shot himself in self-defense. In 1875, the bodies of Packer's traveling companions were found with decomposing flesh missing. The bodies were all within the same vicinity, discrediting the story of them dying off one by one. So my last video did a video regarding Alfred Packer, Colorado's first cannibal. And I've seen a lot of people do the ripple effect in haunted areas. I don't think I got anything, I think that was just a bench. But duet this video if you have gotten anything creepy. Or tag me. So I was on Tumblr and I found what seemed to be like a haunted playground. And it's been reblogged several times and I haven't been able to find like context regarding this playground and what they were doing there and where it is. But this is a snippet. And I can't really tell if the trees, it doesn't seem like the trees are really moving. And I even zoomed in and I really couldn't tell that the trees were moving. I know I said that already, but to reiterate. Do you know if this is staged or like, do you know where I can find more information regarding this? Because it's kind of creepy. Here's the reason why I will not be answering the door at night, part 3. So a couple of videos back, I kind of talked about how my creepy experience with someone knocking the door at night. And I've noticed that a lot of people have experienced this experience in different variations, of course. Back in October 2018, Brian Goldberg experienced something very creepy. You see, a man had tried to reenact a movie and decided to dress up like Michael Myers. He snuck up on his property and attempted to get into the house. Here's a surveillance video showing how creepy this man was. Alright, so you can kind of see him just slowly making his way up to the house. And just standing there staring at the house. And he tries it a few more times. You should watch the video, it's creepy. Okay. Mercy Brown was 19 years old when she had suffered from tuberculosis. When she died, 2 months later, they found that her body was not decomposed, and in fact, they found blood was filling her heart. They were fearing that she might have turned into a vampire and decided to take out her heart and burn it. Now, what they did with the ashes, well, it's really interesting. They mixed it with water and fed it to her ill brother. And do you want to know what happened to her ill brother after eating these ashes? Well, you guessed it. He died. Stay tuned for a part 2, as I will be talking about other different types of vampires around the world. I remember being like 5 years old, being scared shitless, seeing the Chupacabra break out in news at the Telemundo channel or whatever it was called, and locking all my doors, praying to God that I would never see that thing ever. It is described to be 3 feet tall, very reptilian-like characteristics, has a very sulfuric smell that is very similar to alien sightings, because when people see aliens, they describe that smell. Because of this, people think that it is an alien or the devil. But based on this book here, it's a type of vampire. The scary part about this creature is that it sucks the blood out of its victim, where the point where they're really dry. But don't worry, It's never taken a human life, it's only taken goats and cows. Stay tuned for different types of vampires in different parts of the world.